as hard as they could. About then the north wind swept over the forest on his rounds. When he saw the commotion on top of the little knoll, he couldn't help but stop to laugh, and they did look rather comical, the boulders spinning furiously around, while the birds flapped their feathers out and the bear grunted and groaned. "You'll never get him out of there," laughed the wind, "not without breaking him into splinters." That's when they all stopped, because they realized that the wind was right, and because they all felt a little bit foolish. "Well," said Douglas, sticking up for his friends, "at least they tried. That's more than you could do." "Try to do what?" scoffed the north wind. "Make you into kindling? At least if I do something, it'll be something sensible." "Like what?" asked Douglas defiantly. "Well, for one, I could tell you that while your friends were wasting their time, I noticed that there were some people down in the forest who were probably looking for you." "Why would they be looking for me?" Douglas wondered. "Because I also noticed that you are the only Christmas tree left in this part of the woods," the wind said, "and that's what they seem to be looking for." When they heard that, everybody peered into the forest, and just like the north wind said, they saw a man and a boy and a little girl. Douglas had to stretch, but he managed to just peek over the top of the boulder, and when he saw the little girl, he knew that was who he wanted to spend Christmas with. "But they'll never find me here," Douglas moaned. "They'll never see me from down in the forest." Then the little tree started crying all over again. "Oh, stop that blubbering," demanded the north wind. "I can't stand the noise." But Douglas kept right on. In fact, he cried even louder. The north wind ordered again, "Hush up, I say." But Douglas just couldn't stop. He was too sad. Tears were rolling off of every branch. The great north wind mumbled a few words under his breath that nobody could hear, and then in a fit of anger he jumped high into the sky and came down on the little tree with a mighty blast of his freezing Arctic breath. He blew so hard that the birds were knocked off their perches and the bear rolled over. Even the boulders trembled a little bit. When all the blowing stopped, everybody turned to Douglas, and what they saw amazed them. The mighty north wind had frozen all of the tears on the little tree's branches, leaving Douglas encased in ice like a giant popsicle. "What have you done?" gasped a bird. "You ought to be ashamed of yourself," growled the bear. "Yeah," yelled a boulder. "He only wanted to make somebody happy for Christmas." The north wind ordered, "Pipe down!" But nobody listened. They kept telling him how mean he was and what a terrible thing he had done. "All this complaining is worse than the tree crying," grumbled the wind. "It's your own fault," shouted a bird. "You should have helped him," insisted a boulder. With all of them shouting at once, the noise was so loud that the north wind couldn't think straight, and he knew he would never have any peace and quiet again, at least as long as the little tree was stuck on his hill. "All right, enough," screamed the north wind. "I'll help him." The mighty Lord of Winter quickly shot straight up into the sky. When he passed through the thick layer of winter clouds, he called up to the sun, "Hey, Baldy, wake up! I've got a job for you to do." The lazy orange orb rolled over to see what was going on. He usually didn't have much to do in winter, and nobody had ever called him before. But somebody had called his name, and he wanted to know who it was. As he leaned way over, he saw the north wind dropping back through the sky. Before long, the wind had blown a big hole in the layer of clouds and the sun could look all the way down to a little knoll deep in the backwoods. Then the wind rushed down the hill until he was below the man, the boy, and the little girl. Next, he turned and raced back up the hill, hugging close to the ground. When he reached the people, he let loose a big blast of his Arctic breath. The man grabbed the two children and held them safe, but the north wind managed to rip the wool cap off the little girl's head. He dropped it several yards away. "We'd better head for home," the man told the children. "It looks like the weather's getting bad." "But we haven't found our tree yet," said the boy. "And I wanted a special tree," said the girl. The man explained that there weren't any good trees in the area anyway, and that they could look somewhere else tomorrow. The children said, "Okay," but they weren't happy about it. As they turned to leave, the little girl remembered her wool cap and ran to find it. "Natalie," the man called, for that was the little girl's name. "Natalie, come back." "I just want to get my cap. I know right where it is," Natalie answered. She ran up the hill, and sure enough, it was right where she thought it would be, in a little clearing between some rocks. Natalie reached down and picked up her cap, but when she stood up, she caught her breath. She heard her father and her brother coming up behind her. She pointed her finger and gasped, "Oh, Daddy, look!" As the three people looked up on a little knoll between some huge boulders, they saw something they would never forget. It was a Christmas tree covered with silver strings of ice. The sun was bouncing his rays off of the little tree, which seemed to be shining as if it held a warm light somewhere deep inside. A bear was lying comfortably at its feet, and happy little birds fluttered over its strong branches. Even the boulders seemed to want to huddle closer, as if they wanted to protect the little tree. "A special tree," whispered Natalie. The bear and the birds hurried away because they didn't want to scare the people. Then the man climbed up on the knoll and began to dig the little tree out of the ground. "We're going to save his roots so we can replant him in the yard," he told Natalie. "Then we'll have a special tree to decorate every Christmas." As the man and the boy and the little girl carried the silver tree down the hill, Douglas waved a branch to say goodbye to the boulders and the birds and the bear. And when the north wind roared overhead, Douglas gave him a great big wink, as if to say, "You never know who all your friends are until you really need them."